clinical study.
With the power of Tandem HR, you are in the fast lane on Main Street with Get Down to Business with Shalom Klein, the show for business and jobs. Now, the champion of networking, the advocate of jobs, the guru of business, your host, Shalom Klein.
Sir Thomas Watson once said, to be successful, you have to have your heart in your business and your business in your heart. That's absolutely true. Listeners, take that advice to heart. We are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk a lot about business here. You are on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you are there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you won't want to miss. This week, we are talking all about small business. This week, we'll be joined by guests Jim Lencioni, Dick Smith, Andrea Storrs, and Cheryl Ross, and I'm going to be sharing tips on picking some promotional products to make a big dent in your marketing efforts. So first up, I've got Jim Lencioni from Aria Group Architects. Thanks for joining us in the studio, Jim. Welcome to Get Down to Business.
Well, thank you.
So, Jim, you are one of the founders. You made sure to mention your wife, and I hope she's listening. You're one of the founders of what I would call a successful architecture firm based in Oak Park. Tell us a little bit about the story of how you and your partners came up with the idea and decided to start a business.
Well, actually, I started the company with, as you said, my wife and Joe Veda and Walter Pansevich back in 26 years ago. And we started in the living room of my house. In fact, we had a young son at home at the time, and I used to have to go out the front door so he would think I was leaving and come in the back door. So it was interesting. But anyway, we over the years we've come to focus on restaurant and entertainment projects, and we've designed over 2,500 restaurant and entertainment projects around the world. Actually, we work in 40 states, and we worked all over the United States and Europe, South America, the Middle East, and so forth, in designing these types of facilities.
So chances are our listeners have been in one of the facilities that you've designed.
That's correct. I think we designed 70 restaurants in River North and in the near north side of Chicago alone. So
as you mentioned, you've designed facilities all over the world, not just this country. Is there one place that you've been? You've traveled a lot for business, it sounds like, which is fun. We'd love to hear your favorite destination, A. And B, is there a place, a city, a country that you think they just think out of the box and, gosh, they do it well with their restaurants or venues?
Very interesting. One of my favorite places to travel in is Italy, because I get a lot of inspiration from Italy. You can't go wrong with the food, and it's just an amazing place to be. As far as restaurant or inspirational cities in the United States, I think that Chicago is one of the major, and I think that it's getting more and more recognition. But New Orleans treats their restaurants and their chefs as celebrities, and New York does a pretty good job with it also.
Jim, as somebody who probably sits on planes a lot, I'm just going to encourage you to start doing a better job at get into the business of designing airplanes. There's just not enough space.
I can't agree more.
So, Jim, let me sort of talk a little bit about the process of starting a business with you. I would love to listen to your advice, share it with our listeners. You have partners in your business.
That's correct.
How did that process come about where each of you have a role, and is it becoming the reality as you sort of designed it 2 decades ago?
It is, and in fact, much more. I went to school for architecture. I'm an architect first, so I really didn't know much about business. I belonged to Junior Achievement when I was in high school, and that was about it. And I kind of learned from watching others. And I was also part of your next guest's organization. I was part of Tech, which is the predecessor of Vistage, and learned a lot during that. But basically, our company has grown. We're over 100 people today from those 4 that started it in my living room. And the reason that we were able to do that, I kind of learned from Rich Melman. Rich Melman, if he asked me to jump, I say how high. He pretty much underwrote our firm. We did over 70 restaurants for Rich, and one of the things that he's done real well is has utilized partners and helped him grow his company, as have we. There are 5 principals and 6 associates in our company, which all have ownership in the company. So it's not just my company, it's our company. And those principals are ahead of a studio, so that every project that we have has a principal or an extremely experienced owner of the company who is involved with it. And I think that it makes a difference in distinguishing us from other architectural firms.
So for a young professional that's listening to Get Down to Business this evening, and they perhaps have the resources to start a business on their own, they might not need a partner in the traditional sense. Would you recommend that they seek out a partner, or sort of go it at their own and go with the flow?
Well, when we decided to break off from a firm that we were with before, I didn't want to be doing home additions and small projects. I felt that we needed to have a group of people to be able to collaborate on larger projects. Way back when we first started the company, we designed Eagle Ridge and Resort out in Galena after a tragic fire burned it down. We could not have done that by myself. We needed people to help with that, and also to be able to do a lot of other projects that really helped us to grow the company to where it is and to be sustainable through all the ups and downs of the economy. And so we do a lot of diversity in our projects. Even though we do a lot of entertainment and restaurant projects, we diversify them under types amongst that building type.
And you started the firm, as you mentioned, in 1989, February of 1989. It's been a pretty wild 26 years, huh?
That's correct.
So are you involved in the second or perhaps even third iteration of any of the projects that you've designed in the early days of the firm?
That's correct. In fact, we used to draw by hand, and now it's all done by computer. But we have a number of projects that we have to go back into the archives and pull our old hand drawings because we're remodeling them 20 years, 25 years after we did them originally. Restaurants tend to need to do something every 6 to 8 years to refresh and revitalize themselves. Some of our restaurants, we've been lucky, and they've been lucky and able to pretty much stay the same. But then after a certain time, it is necessary to do a major overhaul. And we get called back to do that more often than not.
And it sounds like you've kept your skills fresh. As you said, first and foremost, you're an architect, and I guess you've sort of been thrown into this whole business ownership thing. But I believe you've also taught some classes along the way as well. Tell us a little bit about giving back and teaching others.
Well, actually, I taught years ago at Purdue, a long time ago, an estimating class. I have a architecture and a construction background, which has helped us a lot throughout the history of the firm, because we understand the contractor's standpoint in a lot of projects and try to be fair for everybody. But I also, at Roosevelt University, tend to do a presentation to a class every year, probably for the last 6-7 years, I guess. I work with Chuck Hamburg, who I think was a guest on your show.
He sure was.
And at Roosevelt University.
Chuck's a great guy. Fantastic. So these days, you've built up a pretty solid reputation. I think it's fair to say that most of our Get Down to Business listeners have been in one or many of your establishments that you've designed and been involved in. These days is the best referral source, the repeat customers and the folks that hear about you through word of mouth from colleagues in the industry?
That's correct. We get a lot of work referred to us by other restaurant clients, naturally, our other clients, but also from contractors, building officials. I hate to say this, but we're in a good position to have to turn down work on a regular basis because we just can't handle it. We won't take work if we feel like we can't do a great job in the amount of time that's required that they have to do it. And so, in fact, I think last week I had to turn down 3 projects because their time frame just didn't work in with our schedule.
Pretty amazing. That's fantastic. So any final bits of advice as we're running up against the clock for young professionals that have an idea, that want to turn it into a reality? Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew when you were getting your business started?
Well, I think they should definitely get some business advice. They should take some business classes. You know, I talk a lot to high school students who are about to go into college and college students who are in architectural programs, and I tell them that they should take as many business classes as you can. Not only will it help you in your business, but it'll help you understand your client who really has a business on his mind. Also, to travel as much as you can and experience the world. Learn another language if it's at all possible, because we are a multi-language country as well as our business, and it's just good to know.
That's fantastic. So, Jim, we're running out of time. How can people get a hold of the firm? How can people get a hold of you and learn more about what you're doing?
Well, they could go to our website, www.ariainc.com, and my email is jlencioni@ariainc.com.
Fantastic. Jim, thanks for joining us on the program. We'll be sure to have you back, maybe even with Chuck, to continue talking about what many think is a fun industry. Chuck seems to believe it's a difficult industry. I think that was his advice on the show. Avoid getting into restaurants at all costs. But we'll continue that conversation another time. Jim Lencioni, thanks for joining us on Get Down to Business. After the break, we're going to be talking with Dick Smith, a Vistage chair, somebody who has a lot more advice to share about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get Down to Business is powered by Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them at tandemhr.com or call 630-928-0510. That phone number for Tandem HR, the good folks at the Solution Center, is 630-928-0510. You can find them at tandemhr.com. You can also email them, simplify@tandemhr.com. After the break, we're talking with Dick Smith of Vistage. Don't touch that dial.